He was only the Alien Warlord's human driver. Until the night her convoy was surrounded, what could a human driver possibly do when the Alien Warlord's convoy was surrounded? And why would that single night change how everyone saw him? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We are glad to have you joining us for another journey into the unknown. If you enjoy immersive science fiction stories, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our next adventure. Thank you for spending your time with us and for continuing to support the channel. Your support makes these stories possible. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it there right now? Now, let's begin the story. Whatever happens in the next 60 seconds, do not stop this convoy. Jack Mercer kept both hands on the steering controls as freezing rain rattled against the armored windshield like handfuls of gravel. 8 Varen rovers moved through Karen Pass beneath a moonless sky, their blue navigation lamps forming a broken chain between walls of black stone rising hundreds of feet on either side. Inside the lead command rover, the dashboard painted Jack's pale face in amber light. Tire pressure stable. Battery temperature 28 degrees above minimum. Suspension load uneven but manageable. Everything looked normal. That bothered him. Warlord Soraya Vin sat behind him, nearly 7 feet of sapphire-skinned authority wrapped in a dark military coat, silver-white hair secured behind her shoulders. Her amber eyes lifted from the tactical display. Driver, the lead scout has ordered a halt. I heard him. Then stop. Jack watched the road. 30 miles per hour. 28. The autonomous system was already reducing speed without his permission. A warning appeared across the windshield. Obstruction detected. Route blocked. Jack switched to manual control. The rover gave a soft mechanical chime of protest. Mercer. Soraya rarely used his name. That made the warning sharper. Jack leaned toward the windshield. Something had changed ahead. Not the road. The lights. 3 navigation markers had disappeared during the last quarter mile. First marker 7. Then 8. Then 9. Perfect sequence. Too perfect. Tell Vehicle 3 to tighten formation, Jack said. Soraya's expression hardened. You are giving orders to my convoy. Then make it your order. The radio crackled. A voice started speaking, stretched into static, then vanished. Every communication indicator turned red at once. Jack's pulse slowed. His hearing sharpened around the steady vibration of the electric drive motors beneath his boots. Soraya looked at her dead tactical screen. Signal interference. No. Jack glanced at the canyon walls. Signal control. The rover ahead began braking. Jack keyed the emergency convoy channel. All vehicles, keep moving. Do not stop. Nothing answered. He could only hope the short-range backup transmitted before the interference swallowed it. Soraya leaned forward. Explain yourself. Jack pointed through the windshield. A white light appeared halfway up the eastern ridge. Then another. Then 6 more. Across the western wall, matching lights awakened one by one until the convoy sat between 2 silent constellations that had not existed seconds earlier. Soraya's expression changed. Not fear. Recognition. We are surrounded. The autonomous system sounded another warning and tried to apply the brakes. Jack disabled it completely. The steering controls became heavier beneath his hands. Good, he murmured. Soraya stared at him. Good. Now we know where they are. The lead rover stopped 50 yards ahead, blocking most of the road. Behind them, Vehicle 8 reported an obstacle through a burst of broken radio. Jack checked the terrain display. The official route showed canyon walls, 1 paved corridor, and no exits for 12 miles. He ignored it. His eyes settled on a narrow darkness between 2 rock formations to the left, barely wider than the command rover. No navigation marker. No road designation. Just old tire scars beneath the ice. Soraya followed his gaze. That is not a road. Jack shifted the rover into low-range manual drive. Tonight it is. He turned sharply off the marked route. Behind them, the first Varen vehicle followed. Then another. The command rover entered the darkness between the rocks as warning lights covered the dashboard. Soraya gripped the overhead rail while the suspension adjusted beneath them. Human, where are you taking my convoy? Jack watched the narrow passage disappear into blackness ahead. Somewhere the people surrounding us did not plan for. 72 hours earlier, Jack Mercer had arrived at the Varen military depot carrying 1 weathered duffel bag, a thermos of coffee, and no visible interest in impressing anyone. The transport yard stretched beneath a pale silver sky, crowded with armored rovers, cargo carriers, maintenance drones, and uniformed Varen soldiers preparing for the warlord's journey across Karen province. Jack stopped beside the command rover and crouched near its front wheel. Lieutenant Corvin, the convoy operations officer, watched him with open impatience. The vehicle passed automated inspection this morning. Jack pressed a gauge against the tire valve. I know. Then why are you inspecting it again? Because the computer is not driving tonight. Corvin looked down at him. You are. Exactly. That answer earned Jack several amused looks from nearby soldiers. Humans were still uncommon in Varen military service, and civilian humans were rarer. Jack had been hired because Earth drivers had developed a reputation for operating vehicles in places where automated systems became unreliable. To the Varens, that reputation sounded suspiciously like primitive stubbornness. Jack did not care what they called it. He checked all 8 vehicles: tire pressure, suspension response, battery temperature, manual steering backups, recovery cables, emergency power cells. He crawled beneath 2 rovers to inspect their undercarriages and requested replacement fasteners on a troop carrier whose diagnostic system reported perfect condition. By noon, even the maintenance crew had started avoiding him. Warlord Soraya Van arrived while Jack was studying the route inside the operations building. Conversation stopped before she crossed the doorway. Sapphire skin, silver-white hair, amber eyes, dark military uniform. She carried authority without displaying it. Jack noticed that everyone stood straighter. He remained bent over the map. You are the human driver, Soraya said. Jack looked up. Jack Mercer. Your personnel record says you drove expedition transports on Earth, among other places. My officers tell me you requested physical terrain maps. She glanced at the sheets spread across the table. The convoy has autonomous navigation accurate to 3 inches. That is impressive. Yet you requested maps. Yes. Why? Jack tapped the projected route through Karen Pass. Navigation tells me where the road is supposed to be. He moved his finger toward an older mining corridor barely visible beneath newer survey data. I want to know where it used to be. Corvin folded his arms. The abandoned routes are irrelevant. Jack looked at him. Until the relevant route stops working. Soraya studied Jack for a moment. You expect our systems to fail? I expect every system to fail eventually. That is an unusually pessimistic philosophy. It is a driver's philosophy. Jack returned to the map. He marked 3 old maintenance roads, 2 dry drainage channels, and a mining cut abandoned nearly 40 years earlier. Soraya watched him. Machines know this terrain better than you do. Jack nodded. Machines know where the road is. He folded the physical map and slipped it into his jacket. Drivers know where it can be. Soraya said nothing, but her eyes followed him when he left. That evening, Jack performed one final inspection. Vehicle 4 had a towing cable rated for 40 tons. Vehicle 6 carried portable traction plates. Vehicle 8 had an auxiliary power unit that could recharge another rover. Small details. Nobody else considered them important. Jack did. 3 days later, deep inside Karen Pass, with every navigation system dark and unknown lights surrounding the convoy, those small details returned to him one by one. The command rover bounced through the narrow passage as Soraya watched the official route disappear behind them. Jack reached inside his jacket and pulled out the folded map. No satellite link. No navigation beacon. Just paper beneath dashboard light. Soraya stared at it. You brought that. Jack kept driving. I told you. His finger found the forgotten mining corridor ahead. Eventually, everything fails. The abandoned mining corridor narrowed until both sides of the command rover seemed close enough to touch the black rock. Jack reduced speed to 18 miles per hour and listened. Without autonomous assistance, the vehicle had become honest. Every vibration traveled through the steering controls. Every shift in traction reached his hands before the dashboard registered it. Behind them, 7 sets of blue running lights entered the passage one after another. All 8 vehicles had followed. For now, Convoy channel, Soraya said. Jack switched to the lowest power radio setting. Static filled the cabin. Then Lieutenant Corvin's voice broke through. Warlord, vehicles 5 through 8 are still moving. Vehicle 3 reports intermittent steering assistance. Jack reached for the transmitter. Tell 3 to disable assistance completely and follow my tire tracks. Corvin hesitated. Mercer, you are not Convoy command. Soraya's amber eyes remained on Jack. Tonight, he is giving navigation instructions. Follow them. The silence that followed lasted half a second. Understood. Jack unfolded the old terrain map across the center console. The mining corridor should have rejoined the main route 6 miles ahead. He did not intend to take it that far. Through the windshield, freezing rain turned to fine ice, sparkling in the rover's headlights. Then something moved above them. A small red light crossed the narrow strip of sky. Drone, Soraya said. Jack saw it too. 1 became 3. The convoy had been found. Kill exterior lights, he ordered over the radio. Infrared only. 20-yard spacing. Darkness swallowed the blue lights behind them. Jack dimmed the command rover's dashboard until only essential gauges remained. Soraya studied the tactical display, now reduced to local sensors. They are approaching from the rear. Good. You keep using that word at unusual times. Means they followed the vehicle they think matters. Soraya turned toward him. This is the command rover. Exactly. Jack reached a fork in the mining corridor. The old map showed the right branch descending toward a maintenance basin. The left branch climbed toward an abandoned or platform. Jack turned left. The convoy goes right, he said into the radio. Corvin answered immediately. You are separating from us? For 3 miles. Keep everyone together. No stops. Soraya stared at him. You intend to use my vehicle as bait. I intend to give those drones something obvious to follow. I am inside the obvious thing. Jack glanced at her. I noticed. The smallest trace of disbelief crossed her face. Then she keyed the radio herself. All vehicles, follow Mercer's instruction. 7 rovers disappeared down the right branch, while Jack climbed left. The red lights above changed direction with him. Soraya watched the sensor display. They took the bait. Not yet. The road steepened. Jack felt the rear tires lose a fraction of traction and eased off the accelerator instead of fighting the slide. The rover settled. Ahead, the abandoned or platform emerged from the darkness, a wide shelf overlooking the canyon. Beyond it was nothing but open air and a drop into blackness. Soraya leaned forward. The road ends. The map says that too. You knew? Yes. Jack drove toward the edge anyway. The pursuing drones closed from behind, their red indicators multiplying on the local sensor. 200 yards. 150. Soraya's hand moved toward the emergency control. Jack. It was the first time she had used his first name. He waited until the platform filled the windshield. Then he turned hard onto a nearly invisible service ramp running beneath the ore structure. The command rover slipped into darkness just as the drones passed overhead toward the empty platform. Jack cut power completely. Silence filled the cabin. Above them, red lights searched the wrong road. Soraya looked at Jack in the faint glow of the instruments. You deliberately drove toward a cliff. Jack listened until the drones moved farther away. No, he restarted the rover. I drove toward a road they did not know was there. The radio crackled. Corvin's voice returned, weak but clear. Mercer, we have a problem. Vehicle 6 is losing propulsion. Jack's expression changed. The bait had worked. Now the real convoy was slowing down. Jack brought the command rover back onto the lower mining route at 22 miles per hour, moving carefully enough to preserve traction, but fast enough to close the 3-mile gap. Corvin's voice returned through the low-power channel. Vehicle 6 has partial propulsion. Battery output is fluctuating. Keep it moving, Jack said. Even 5 miles per hour is better than 0. Soraya watched the narrow road ahead. The drones may return. They will. You sound certain. People who build traps usually check them twice. The mining route curved around a ridge and suddenly became no wider than 12 feet. Blackstone rose on Jack's right. On his left, the headlights revealed empty darkness beyond a low barrier worn smooth by decades of ice. The navigation display flashed red. Unsafe terrain. Autonomous control recommended. Jack reached forward and shut down the remaining driver assistance systems. Steering resistance increased immediately. Soraya looked at the darkened indicators. You disabled the safety systems. They keep correcting toward the center of a road that does not exist anymore. And your solution is less assistance? My solution is information I can trust. Jack lowered the rover to 11 miles per hour. He felt the front tires through the steering controls, tiny changes in resistance telling him where packed gravel ended and ice began. The vehicle leaned slightly toward the drop. He eased 2 inches toward the rock wall. The suspension compressed. The rover settled. Soraya had stopped watching the tactical display. She was watching his hands. Your instruments show almost nothing. They show enough. You are navigating by feel. Mostly. That is not reassuring. It is working. The road tightened again. Ahead, an old mining support beam had collapsed across part of the passage, leaving barely enough clearance. Jack stopped 10 feet away. Soraya's amber eyes moved toward him. You told the convoy never to stop. Different problem. He shifted into the lowest drive range and checked the rover width. 7 feet, 11 inches. Available opening looked perhaps 8 feet, 4 inches. 5 inches of forgiveness. Jack folded both exterior mirrors inward. You intend to fit through that? That is the general idea. He advanced at walking speed. Metal passed within inches of stone. The left tire rolled close to the edge while the right side nearly brushed the collapsed support. Soraya remained perfectly still. Jack made one correction. Half an inch. Then another. The rover cleared the obstruction. He exhaled. Soraya looked behind them. You were holding your breath. Only near the expensive parts. Which parts are those? All of them. For the first time that night, Soraya laughed. It lasted barely a second, but the sound changed the cabin. Jack accelerated carefully. 2 minutes later, blue infrared markers appeared ahead. The convoy. 7 vehicles waited inside a natural basin protected by high rock walls. Vehicle 6 sat near the center, its power indicators flickering. Jack parked beside it and stepped into the freezing rain. Soraya followed. Corvin approached immediately. We can isolate the failing battery section, but propulsion will remain limited. Jack crouched beside the wheel housing and placed one gloved hand against the casing. Too cold. Thermal regulator failed, he said. The battery is protecting itself. Corvin checked his scanner. Correct. Jack looked toward Vehicle 8. Bring the auxiliary power unit. Route waste heat through 6 before charging. Corvin stared at him. That is not standard procedure. Jack stood. Neither is tonight. Soraya looked across the canyon at 7 waiting vehicles, then at the human driver who had led them through a road her computers had declared impossible. Somewhere above the ridge, a faint red light appeared again. The drones had found them. Jack saw it too. We have maybe 10 minutes, he said. Soraya's expression hardened. To repair Vehicle 6? Jack shook his head and looked deeper into the canyon, where the forgotten road continued beneath the mountains. To make them believe we went somewhere else. 10 minutes became 8 before Jack finished explaining the idea. Vehicle 6 remained connected to the auxiliary power unit from Vehicle 8, warm coolant circulating through its battery housing while the convoy waited beneath the canyon walls. Above them, the red drone light moved slowly across the ridge. Jack pointed toward an abandoned tunnel entrance on the eastern side of the basin. We send 2 maintenance drones through there with vehicle transponders attached. Full power, maximum signal. Corvin studied the route. That tunnel leads north. Exactly. We need to travel south. Also exactly. Soraya stood beside the command rover, freezing rain shining against her sapphire skin. You want whoever is tracking us to believe the convoy entered the tunnel. Jack nodded. Long enough to buy distance. Corvin looked unconvinced, but Soraya gave the order. Minutes later, 2 maintenance drones disappeared into the tunnel carrying false convoy signatures. The red light above the ridge changed direction and followed. Nobody celebrated. Jack watched until it vanished, then checked Vehicle 6. Battery temperature had risen into operating range. How long? Soraya asked. 5 minutes before we know whether it holds. Then we have 5 minutes. For the first time since the ambush, the convoy became quiet. Engines dropped to standby. Rain tapped against armor. Cooling metal clicked softly in the darkness. Jack climbed into the command rover and rubbed warmth back into his hands. Soraya entered from the opposite side and closed the door. The cabin felt strangely small without alarms filling it. She studied him in the dim amber dashboard glow. Where did you learn to drive like that? Like what? Across a road my military database classified as impassable. Jack poured cold coffee from his thermos and considered the question. Earth. Soraya waited. That explains nothing. Earth rarely does. Her expression almost became a smile. Your planet truly has roads worse than this. Some roads. Some places without roads. Snow in Montana. Mud in Louisiana. Mountain routes in Colorado where the weather changes before you finish complaining about it. And humans simply drive through them. Sometimes we complain while driving. Soraya looked through the windshield at the dark canyon. Varen doctrine teaches that survival comes from controlling uncertainty. Jack took another sip. Humans usually settle for getting through it. She was quiet for several seconds. You do not behave like a civilian driver. I am a civilian driver. My officers treated that title as though it made you unimportant. Jack tightened the thermos lid. Everybody notices the driver when the vehicle stops. A status light flashed green. Vehicle 6 had stabilized. Jack reached for the controls, but Soraya spoke before he could start the engine. Why did you inspect every vehicle yourself? Because they were all traveling together. That is not an answer. Jack looked through the windshield at 7 rovers waiting in darkness. A convoy is only as fast as the vehicle having the worst night. Soraya studied him differently after that. Not as a contractor. Not quite as an equal. Something between the two had shifted. Corvin's voice arrived through the radio. Vehicle 6 reports stable propulsion. We can move. Jack started the rover. 8 engines awakened across the basin. Then another transmission followed. Warlord, there is a second issue. Troop Carrier 4 is reporting steering failure. Jack closed his eyes for half a second. Soraya looked at him. You were correct. About what? Eventually, everything fails. Jack shifted into drive. Yeah. He looked toward the 7 vehicles waiting behind him. The trick is deciding what you refuse to leave behind when it does. The steering failure in Troop Carrier 4 was worse than Corvin had reported. Jack found the vehicle half a mile south of the basin, angled across the narrow mining road with 30 Varen soldiers inside, and its front steering assembly locked almost completely to the left. The rest of the convoy waited ahead beneath dark cliffs while freezing rain swept through the headlights. Jack climbed down from the command rover and examined the carrier. Manual steering? Soraya asked from behind him. Disconnected. Repair time. Corvin checked his scanner. At least 40 minutes. Soraya looked toward the canyon entrance. Their false signals would not fool the drones forever. We do not have 40 minutes. Nobody answered. She studied the carrier, then the road ahead. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of command. Transfer whoever we can. Disable the vehicle. We continue south. Jack stood slowly. There are 30 people in there. I know. The other vehicles cannot carry 30. I know that too. Jack looked at Soraya. For the first time, he saw what command cost her. She was not abandoning them because they meant nothing. She was considering it because everyone else meant something too. Drive, she ordered quietly. Jack looked toward his rover. Then he removed his safety harness and set it on the seat. No, Corvin stared at him. Soraya's amber eyes narrowed. What did you say? I said no. You are refusing a direct order from the warlord commanding this convoy. Yes. Jack walked toward Vehicle 4. Soraya followed. Mercer, every minute we remain here increases the chance they find us. Then we should work fast. Jack crouched beside the carrier's recovery mount. The vehicle weighed nearly 38 tons. Too heavy for one rover on icy ground. Not too heavy for 3. He pointed toward Vehicle 8. 40-ton recovery cable. Bring it forward. Corvin hesitated. Soraya said nothing. Jack continued. Vehicle 2 takes the front line. Command rover takes the right stabilizing line. 8 pushes auxiliary power into 4 so we can keep the wheels rolling even without steering. Corvin studied the geometry. The carrier will still pull left. Then we let it. Jack pointed toward the road. There is a gentle right curve for the next 2 miles. We use the failure instead of fighting it. Soraya looked at the physical map in his hand, then at the stranded carrier. And after 2 miles? We find another answer. That is your plan. That is the part we need right now. For 3 seconds, the warlord said nothing. Then she turned toward Corvin. Do it. The convoy moved again 12 minutes later. Slowly. 7 miles per hour. Recovery cables stayed taut between the vehicles while Jack guided the formation from the command rover. Every turn required coordination. Every change in traction traveled through 3 drivers and nearly 100 feet of cable. Soraya sat beside Jack now, watching the mirrors. Vehicle 4 is drifting. I see it. Jack eased right. Vehicle 2, add 10% pull. The carrier straightened. 1 mile passed. Then another. Nobody had been left behind. Corvin's voice came over the radio, quieter than before. All 30 personnel secure. Carrier stable. Soraya looked at Jack. Military doctrine would have told me to leave them. Military doctrine was probably written by people who were not sitting in vehicle 4. You risked the entire convoy. Yes. There was no pride in his answer. No challenge. Just acceptance of the cost. Soraya looked through the windshield at the dark road ahead. Humans are difficult people to command. Jack adjusted the steering. We get that a lot. Then his eyes caught something on the terrain map. He leaned closer. The blocked highway. The mining corridor. The false northern route. Every available path formed the same pattern. Not random barriers. Directional pressure. Someone had been steering them south from the beginning. Jack felt cold for a reason that had nothing to do with the weather. Soraya. She heard the change in his voice. What? Jack traced the routes with one finger. Every safe option converged toward the same destination. Fortress Vera. They are not trying to stop us. Soraya stared at the map. Jack looked through the windshield as the road continued south. They are choosing where we go. Jack kept one hand on the steering controls while the other traced the route lines across the folded terrain map. The pattern became clearer the longer he looked at it. Karen Pass had been blocked from the east. The drones had pressured them away from the northern mining corridor. The abandoned roads that remained usable all bent south toward Fortress Vera. Even Vehicle 6 had begun failing near the point where turning back became difficult. Too many coincidences. How far to the fortress? Jack asked. Soraya checked the local navigation cache. 47 miles. And what is there tonight? The Central Command Council. Her amber eyes sharpened. My senior officers are gathering before dawn to approve the Northern Defense appointments. Jack glanced at her. Can they do that without you? Not legally. What happens if you do not arrive? Soraya became very still. After sunrise, the council may invoke emergency continuity authority. Jack understood immediately. Someone else gets your chair. Temporarily. Temporary power has a funny way of getting comfortable. Soraya ignored the comment and opened the encrypted command channel. Static answered. Every long-range frequency remained blocked. Who benefits? Jack asked. Several people. Who benefits tonight? That question changed her expression. She looked toward Corvin's rover ahead, then back to the map. General Mailer chairs the council in my absence. Jack tapped Fortress Vera. Then this convoy was never the target. Soraya looked at him. Explain. If they wanted to stop us permanently, they had better opportunities. Instead, they blocked roads, disrupted navigation, followed our signals, and kept pushing us toward one destination. Fortress Vera. Exactly. Jack shook his head. But I do not think they actually want us there. Soraya studied the route again. Then she saw it. The fortress sat 60 miles from the capital by air, but the road network beyond it curved east before reaching the government district. Arriving at Fortress Vera would cost them hours. They want me late, she said. Jack nodded. Late enough for somebody else to make decisions in your name. Corvin's voice came through the short-range channel. Warlord, movement detected behind us. Multiple aerial signals. Their false trail had expired. Jack checked the time. 3 hours and 52 minutes until sunrise. The normal road to the capital required nearly 6 hours under good conditions. Tonight was not good conditions. Soraya stared through the windshield. Her face reflected faintly in the glass. If Mailer invokes continuity authority before I arrive, he can control military communications, transportation, and the capital's security network. How long before anyone can challenge him? Days. Long enough. Yes. Jack unfolded the oldest section of his map. Most routes ended at Karen Pass or Fortress Vera. One did not. A faded survey line crossed a blank region west of the mountains and reappeared near the capital basin. Jack read the handwritten designation. Blackglass Basin. Corvin came over the radio again. Mercer, that route is abandoned. I noticed. It crosses volcanic glass fields. No Veran convoy has used it in 30 years. Jack measured the distance with his finger. 81 miles. Shorter than the highway by almost half. Soraya leaned closer. Military maps classify Blackglass Basin as impassable. Jack looked at the convoy behind them. 8 vehicles. 1 damaged steering system. 1 recently stabilized battery. 30 people who had almost been left behind. Impassable for what? For military vehicles. These military vehicles? Yes. Jack considered the suspension, tire compounds, available traction plates, towing capacity, battery range, and the freezing temperature outside. Difficult was not the same as impossible. Soraya watched him calculate. Can you take us through? Jack looked toward the western darkness where no road lights existed. I have no idea. A surprising calm entered Soraya's face. Good. Jack raised an eyebrow. Good. You use that word at unusual times. I thought I would try it. Then she activated the convoy channel. Her voice carried through all 8 vehicles. All units. Fortress Vera is no longer our destination. Effective immediately, navigation authority transfers to Jack Mercer. Silence followed. Jack looked at her. Soraya held his gaze. Then she spoke the order that no Veran officer expected to hear from a warlord. All vehicles, follow the human. Blackglass Basin began where the mountains ended. One moment, the convoy was descending between jagged cliffs. The next, the land opened into 30 miles of dark volcanic glass shimmering beneath the frozen night. There were no road markers, no navigation beacons, no guardrails, only fractured black ground stretching toward a distant ridge. Jack stopped at the edge for 12 seconds. Soraya watched him. You told us not to stop. I also told you everything fails eventually. He stepped out into the cold, crouched, and pressed a gloved hand against the surface. Thin ice covered sections of the glass, but beneath it the ground felt solid. He returned to the rover. Corvin, deploy traction plates on vehicles 4 and 6. Reduce tire pressure by 12% across the convoy. Increase suspension clearance 2 inches. Corvin answered without hesitation this time. Understood. Jack noticed that. 3 hours earlier, every instruction had required an argument. Now 7 vehicles waited for his next sentence. The convoy entered Blackglass Basin at 14 miles per hour. Jack avoided the smoothest surfaces. They looked safer, which usually meant they were not. Instead, he followed fractured bands where old thermal movement had created natural traction. The command rover vibrated beneath him. Soraya studied the clock. 3 hours, 19 minutes until sunrise. We need more speed. We need 8 vehicles at the finish. Can we have both? Ask me in 80 miles. Behind them, Troop Carrier 4 drifted left. Jack corrected the convoy formation before Corvin reported it. Vehicle 6 began running cold again, so Jack moved it directly behind Vehicle 8, where waste heat from the larger rover raised the surrounding air temperature enough to stabilize its battery system. Small adjustments. 5 miles. 12. 20. The basin became rougher. Glass ridges rose like frozen waves across the landscape. Jack stopped treating the convoy as 8 vehicles. It became one machine with 8 sets of wheels. Vehicle 2 tested crossings. The command rover chose the line. Vehicle 8 supplied power. Vehicles 3 and 7 carried traction equipment forward. Carrier 4 stayed between 2 rovers that could correct its steering drift. Left 15 feet, Jack called. Vehicle 5, wait. 4 comes through first. Easy throttle. No sudden braking. One by one, they crossed. A red light appeared far behind them. Then 3 more. Soraya looked at the rear display. They found the basin. Jack checked the distance. They expected us to turn around. Will they follow? Not if they trust their maps. The lights remained at the basin entrance. For once, Veran doctrine worked in Jack's favor. Impassable meant nobody went there. Nobody except 8 vehicles that had stopped asking permission from the map. 2 hours remained. The western ridge grew larger. Then the ground changed. A field of polished glass stretched nearly half a mile ahead, smooth as frozen water. Jack slowed. No fractured surface. Almost no traction. Soraya stared at the clock. Jack, I see it. He looked at the recovery cables stored across the convoy and smiled faintly. Corvin, connect every vehicle. All 8. All 8. 10 minutes later, nearly 400 feet of convoy became a linked chain. The first rover crossed slowly, pulling against the second. Then the second supported the third. Weight shifted through cables instead of individual tires. Nobody moved alone. Nobody was allowed to slide alone. The command rover reached solid ground first. Jack kept tension on the line until Troop Carrier 4 finally climbed onto rough stone behind them. Corvin's voice filled the radio. 8 vehicles accounted for. Soraya looked through the rear window. All 8. Every blue marker. Every passenger. Jack finally allowed himself one breath. Ahead, the ridge opened. Far beyond it, lights covered the horizon. The Veran capital. Soraya checked the time. 53 minutes until sunrise. Then her tactical receiver suddenly awakened. The interference was gone. Hundreds of messages flooded the display at once. Soraya read the first government alert and became perfectly still. "What is it?" Jack asked. She turned the screen toward him. General Mailer had called the Emergency Council. The vote to transfer authority would begin in 47 minutes. Jack looked at the city lights, then at the convoy clock. How far? 36 miles. He tightened both hands around the steering controls. Soraya understood before he spoke. Blackglass Basin had not been the impossible part. The impossible part was arriving on time. Jack did the math once and did not bother doing it again. 36 miles. 47 minutes. 8 vehicles, 1 damaged steering assembly, 1 unstable battery, and a road descending toward a capital that had no idea its warlord was racing an emergency vote. "Corvin, maximum sustainable speed," Jack said. "Do not chase me. Keep the convoy together." "Understood." Soraya opened a government channel. "This is Warlord Soraya Vin. Delay the council vote." Static answered first, then an automated security message. Her command credentials were under administrative review. Soraya stared at the display. "Mailer has already begun transferring authority." Jack accelerated. "Then we stop asking permission." The road widened as they descended from the ridge. 35 miles per hour became 45. Jack kept the command rover smooth through each curve, braking before the turns and carrying momentum through them. Behind him, 7 blue markers held formation. Vehicle 6 remained stable. Carrier 4 drifted slightly left, corrected by the towing geometry Jack had refused to abandon hours earlier. 30 minutes remained. 22 miles. The capital lights grew brighter. Soraya tried another frequency. This time a civilian traffic network answered. "Can you broadcast publicly?" Jack asked. "Military matters are not discussed on civilian channels." "Tonight they are." Soraya understood. She transmitted her identity, convoy location, and live biometric authorization across the public emergency band. Within seconds, civilian receivers across the capital confirmed that the warlord was alive and approaching the city. Mailer could block military communications. He could not silence millions of ordinary receivers at once. 15 minutes remained when the first towers appeared beyond the highway. Jack saw traffic control lights turning red ahead. "He controls the roads now," Soraya said. Jack reduced speed, studying the city map. "Machines know where the road is." Soraya looked at him and almost smiled. "Drivers know where it can be." Jack took the service route beside an old freight terminal. The convoy followed. No shortcuts through crowds. No reckless turns. Just loading lanes, maintenance roads, and transit corridors Jack had studied before departure because he studied every route twice. 7 minutes remained when the government complex appeared. The convoy rolled into the outer plaza as dawn began turning the eastern sky silver. Jack stopped the command rover. One by one, the others arrived behind him. Vehicle 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All 8. Soraya looked through the windshield at them before opening her door. "You brought everyone." Jack switched off the engine. That was the idea. The Emergency Council never completed its vote. Soraya entered the chamber with 30 soldiers from the carrier that Doctrine had told her to abandon. Their testimony, convoy records, manipulated navigation data, and Mailer's unauthorized command changes ended the transfer before it began. There was no grand confrontation. The evidence was enough. 3 weeks later, Jack stood at the back of the Varen War Council chamber, wearing the same plain civilian jacket he had worn at the depot. Around the table sat generals, ministers, logistics commanders, and Warlord Soraya Vin. Jack had driven her there that morning. As far as he was concerned, his job was finished. "Mercer," Soraya said. Every officer turned. Jack looked toward her. "Warlord." She indicated the empty chair on her right. "Sit." Jack glanced at the generals. "I am the driver. You spent one night deciding where my entire command went." Her amber eyes held the faint warmth he had learned to recognize. "You may as well sit down while doing it." A few officers looked uncomfortable. Corvin, seated across the table, simply nodded. Jack walked forward and took the chair. No medal waited for him. No ceremonial title. Only a map projected across the table and people who now listened when he studied it. Soraya leaned toward him. "There is one thing I still do not understand." "Only one. Why did you refuse to leave Vehicle 4? Jack looked at the 30 small personnel markers now safely registered inside the capital. "Because getting there without them would have meant we did not really make it." Soraya was silent. Outside, morning lights spread across the city. The galaxy measured warriors by the battles they won. Humans sometimes measured victory by how many people they brought home.